Welcome back to the channel, and today we're looking at the brand new Bestech Large Slasher. They had a smaller version of this that ended up being a deal breaker for a lot of people because of the pocket clip placement, but they fixed some things, they made it a little bit bigger, and I decided I wanted to check this version out. So you have this, I guess they're calling it a sheep's foot or maybe even a reverse Santa, whatever you want to call it. I don't really care. A nice stone wash finish, D2 steel. And Bestech usually does a really good job with their D2. Even though I would have preferred either 14C or 154 cm, I can deal with D2 from Bestech. You have a nice little top swedge for some added flare. Comes all the way down, bringing that tip down a little bit. Do have some jimping here. I call it very moderate traction jimping. It doesn't really do a whole lot for me, and it's placed back a lot. Not something I really care about because you got a nice little flat spot to rest the thumb. This is an excellent utility blade shape. You can easily get that tip down into things to do some fine precision work if you need to trace something out, or if you need it to pierce into something and drag through it, break down some boxes. Excellent blade shape for that, and you have a very slight belly so you can still do some cuts on a flat cutting surface in a pinch grip. You have a very well done sharpening choil. I like how they went straight up from that plunge grind. I wish more companies would do this. So you're going to have all the way to where my thumbnail is before it starts to widen up. You have dual thumb studs. We'll talk about that later. And you have a decent height flat grind that comes down to around 17 thousandths behind the edge. Why don't we see how it performs? The knife came really sharp out of box. Bestech usually does a pretty darn good job with that. And most of their knives usually hold a really good edge, especially the D2, 154 cm they do, 14C. I find they do a really good job with those. Those are simple steels to heat treat, especially in mass production. So I have never had any issues with that. One thing that I will say is that the edge bevel that they come with is usually pretty steep, so I usually drop it down after this review. So now we're going to test the ergos, and that was one place that the smaller version really failed for most people because the clip caused a severe hot spot. Well, I'm happy to say that no hot spots that I noticed. The only thing I noticed once I started really bearing down into the wood is that the bottom of the scales, there's a hard line from where they did this deep contour on the scales. Kind of irritate my hands, but as long as you're not doing it for a long period of time, it wouldn't be a problem whatsoever. May not be a problem for you. Now we're going to go through the sisal rope, the 1/2-inch sisal rope, and I raised it up on a block just because it's just way too hard to cut it on the flat surface without raising it up. At least for me, I already have enough blisters on my hands. I don't want to make it even worse, trying to push through something when you're only getting a little portion of the edge into the rope. But it's performing really nicely, and the pinch grip is nice and comfortable. The edge, like I said, is still holding strong. The only thing that would have made it better is having a 17-degree edge bevel on it. It would have really shined here. Sorry about that. But yeah, it also, like I said earlier too, I would have loved to see at least 14C and 154 cm. They do such a good job with 154 cm. I would have rather pay the extra couple of dollars and have one of those stainless steels rather than D2. Now they do a good job with the D2. It holds a good edge, but it's just the stainless properties I get with the 14C and the Nitro Vs and the AEBLs and the 154 cms, just a much better compromise there. But we get through, I think, 85 cuts before I run out of rope here, and yeah, the edge still felt really good. Now this is where it's going to shine, doing dry cuts like this, because you can really get that tip down into the material that you're cutting, and it did a really good job there. Now I'm going to show you, you can do stuff on a flat cutting surface. It's just when you're really bearing down hard, especially when you're getting to the cutting surface that you're cutting on, it's going to be difficult. With the tubing, it's not so bad because I can pull through it, but all the other, the sisal rope is just too fibrous. You're really bearing down to cut that stuff. So here it still has an excellent bite to the edge, and it performed as good as all the other Bestechs I've ever tested. So very happy with the way this one did. All right, let's test that edge out after all that cutting. Not bad. All right, let's take a look at the deployment action of the knife. Like I said, it's got dual thumb studs, good access to the thumb studs because of this chamfer right here, allowing me to get my thumb in there easily. So crossbar lock, and that can be a hit or miss for some companies, but they dialed it in perfectly. Good tension, nice and snappy. Yeah, I like the tension that they went with on this one. It's riding on ceramic ball bearings, giving it that nice drop shut action once you let go, and snappy action once you push past the crossbar lock. Now let's close it up. Take a look at this handle area. You got nice contoured blue canvas micarta on this one. Nice and grippy. It's got the texture actually on top. Love that. You have the Bestech logoed pivot, Torx T8 for the pivot. Unfortunately, the body screw is T6. But at least the clip screws T8 as well. But it would have been nice to have T8 throughout so I don't have to swap drivers. And so I don't have to worry about stripping that out on accident. Now, one thing I did notice, even though, like I said, you have a nice contouring on these scales, they have a hard line right here. Hopefully that's coming across there and there. This one's not so much an issue, but whenever I was really bearing down into the wood, I was feeling this right here. Not terrible, but something I would have loved to see them soften this edge a little bit more, because it doesn't seem to have a bevel. It's stopping right there. We have a reversible deep carry wire pocket clip, which in my opinion was an excellent idea, because originally they had just a regular stainless bent clip right there, and see how high it is. It was landing in people's palms, making it really, really uncomfortable. Plus, the handle was shorter, so that top part was probably sitting right there on your palm. But for me, I can kind of choke up right here into this little choil area, and that back portion is not in my palm. So it was nice and comfortable other than this little line right here, and that was only a minor hot spot whenever I really started bearing down into the wood. We have a black, I'm guessing G10 backspacer that's flush. We have tons of skeletonization on those liners that are inset into the frame, bringing your weight to 115.9 grams or 4.08 ounces. The knife still feels nice and light and nimble in the hand because Bestech is the king of balancing out knives. I've never got a Bestech that I can recall that wasn't perfectly balanced. Talk about the lock. This is a crossbar lock, which is a very robust locking system. Absolutely. When I say I cannot muscle any side to side, maybe some very minor up and down slide. That's about it. Quick size comparison with the Ontario Rat 1 and 2. Next, we have the Civivi Vision FG and the Civivi Chevalier. And it's a little shorter than the Bestech Glock, and it's about identical to the Bestech Man Ronin. Nitpicks and complaints, I would have much rather see 14C or Nitro V or 154 CM over D2, just because I live in a very humid environment and it has a potential to rust on you. And I would have liked to see a small little chamfer or something to knock this hard edge off on the bottom right here. Not the end of the world unless you plan on, doing some very hard duty cutting, and it might not bother your hands. But overall, I like the upgrades or the bigger version. I love the overall form factor of the knife. It's an excellent utility blade shape, great action. I like that raw stone wash. And yeah, definitely one that I could highly recommend. I think these are like 65 bucks. And for the fit and finish you get from Bestech knives, I think 65 bucks, if that is the right, is A-okay in my opinion. One other thing that I want to mention before I let y'all go, one thing that I found with Bestech knives, a lot of their knives have pretty thick edge bevels. And after I do my testing, I usually drop them to around 17 degrees. And I must say, they usually perform just worlds different. So there you go. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave them down below. I hope everybody's having an absolute amazing day. I will see y'all on the next one. Peace.